Ladies and gentlemen, it's Linger Longer Wednesday service, January 29th, 2025. And we still have Porter here with us. And he's still my guest. Maybe we make friends with Porter. Maybe Porter's all right. I'd like that. Anybody who wants to can join us in the StreamYard. Those of you who are in the future, because none of the fellowship are showing up yet. But we'll see if some people show up. I don't know how many people out there know about this, but Culch, our friend Cultural Hall. Porter, do you know who Culch is? Cultural Hall.
Yeah.
So Culch is giving up Cultural Hall on Friday, I believe, this week anyway. He's giving up the name and switching to Culch because. Well, those of you who know are in the know. I tried to convince him not to do it, but basically somebody claims they already own Cultural Hall, which is, I don't know. Do you know about that, Porter, that old conflict?
No, I don't know.
There's some LDS person who claims they own the words Cultural Hall, and he can't use it, and threatened to sue him. And it was like
the church would probably have a better claim than that individual. That word has been around for some time and common.
It's a room in a building. That's what we've all been saying the whole time. It's a room in a building. And I don't think the church even ever bothered to copyright it. I mean, why would they? What's the point, right? And so, anyways, I tried to convince him not to give it up, but he got enough of this guy harassing him over it that he's like, okay, fine, I don't care. Just call it Culch. I don't care. So it could be a toxic world out there. The religious conflict. Apparently, they were fairly friendly from time to time, but this person just kind of flies off the handle over there.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about that.
How long have you been a member of the church? Are you a convert, born in the covenant?
I was born into it, but I wasn't super active for a while. Now I'm back. So.
Oh. How old are you? Do you mind my asking?
26.
Oh my goodness, baby! Doing the Menace to Society thing, or are you married?
Menace to Society. Yeah, that's my.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you, man. When I was a missionary, I used to say to people, I'm like, I'm going to be a menace to society. You people who get married at 21, you're out your minds, And then,
That's right.
Then a girl started writing to me in the last months of my mission. They're like, you're going to be married as soon as you get home. She smelled blood in the water, that one. And sure enough, we were engaged a couple of years later, but then we didn't get married. And I didn't get married until I was 25. So you've held out longer than me.
I'm doing my best here. Doing my best.
How do you keep a stick handy so that you can beat them off as they come at you? I mean, is that it?
I got a ring doorbell. Please go away.
I don't have time for you women to throw yourself at me, you Latter-day Saints.
It's a real problem. Yeah. No.
Are you in a very Mormon area? Are you out in the country?
South Salt Lake, so pretty, it's a mix.
I drive through your neighborhood all the time. I go and deliver blankets to the unsheltered a couple times a week right now, and so yeah, I'm up your neck of the woods pretty much all the time.
What organization do you work through?
The Church of Korihor.
That's its own thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, the Church of Korihor is a church registered with the state and with the federal government. Lots of interesting looks when you go into the government offices at the state of Utah to register the Church of Korihor.
Right.
That's a joke, Porter. Before you call me out on being a liar, I filed the paperwork online, but I did have to talk to a person on the phone.
Sure, they'd be confused. I'm sure they'd be concerned. Like, yeah. Whoever's working in the state office building.
It's bureaucracy. They were, they all sound the same.
Ah,
Forgive me,
fair
my
enough.
friends who work in the government. It's all fine. I mean, it's just like, and she's like looking at it, and I'm like, it's the Church of Korihor, and like it was like a pause, and then and all right, sorry.
That's funny.
Don't you want to know? Okay, never mind.
So, where is there like a particular community that you're working with?
Right now, we're just going directly to the unsheltered out in the in Salt Lake. We also have a mission that my one of my converts, Jules, has been working out in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I do personally volunteer with an organization up in Salt Lake called Second and Second. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
They're the group that do the all night movie nights because there's a bit of a challenge with warming centers. When they are authorized to open as a warming center versus not. So this nonprofit basically volunteers with the churches like St. Mark's Cathedral and First United Methodist to go in and host an all night movie night in their not usually sanctuary. Sometimes they do it I think in the First United they do it inside the sanctuary. At St. Mark's they do it out in kind of their cultural hall basically, where they can fit more people, and they project movies onto the wall all night long because nobody can come in and tell them you can't open as a warming center. It's not a warming center. It's all night movie night. You can't tell us we can't have all night movie night. We've contracted with the church to have all night movie night, and we can have anybody we want or all night movie night. And then these people, they'll huddle up. Most of them are couples. Oh, well, no, I don't know about most of them. Lots of them are couples, and they'll huddle up under blankets in this church while they just take DVDs out of the church's library. This church has the church where I volunteered at once so far. They have DVDs lined up on the wall, right, for that people can like come borrow DVDs, and they're projecting. When I went to go home, went to tell them, hey guys, I'm headed out for the night, and I looked up to the wall because all these people sleeping on the floor, and I looked up, and they were playing Jackass, which I'd never seen before. That's not my movie.
In St.
Not my
Mark's?
in St. Mark's on the wall. Yeah.
Okay.
And there
All right.
was a full-on scrotum on the wall, projected on the wall right there. I looked up. I was talking to this really sweet gal, this really cute, sweet gal who's also volunteered. I looked up and I said, there is a scrotum on that church wall. And she turned and she looked and she said, oh yeah, so there it is. I'm like, you won't find that at an LDS church house.
No, we do our best to keep scrotums off the walls in our churches. But it happens. It happens, And
I'm sure it does.
that's-
I can't testify. I told the officer already. I know nothing about scrotums on that Mormon church wall. I know nothing about that.
Good. You're pre-pleading. That's excellent. I like that. No, I do think that's a cool idea though. An all night. But is the sound actually on, or is it just so like people can get in the building and sleep?
They turn it off once people fall asleep.
Yeah, that's smart.
I mean, especially if they're going to be playing Jackass.
Yeah, it's a good move.
But I got to
wake up and it's Jackass. That's pretty funny.
Jackass. Wake up. I mean, I guess they've seen weirder things, out where they are. But I got to work the door the night that I worked there. So I got to be the one because like they can only let so many people into the building for the fire code. Right. And I had to be the one to tell people, yeah, I'm sorry, you have to go back out into the cold because we can only let so many people in. And it's heartbreaking, man. That's heartbreaking work. But before we'd started even that, we found out that the warming centers up there and down in Orem are trying to have put out a call for blankets. And I contacted the lady who runs the group down in Orem, interdenominational group. I said, how many blankets? I got an atheist church, godless church that can get blankets. How many blankets do you need? And she said, lots. I'm like, okay, this is lots, 100 or 1,000. She's like, lots. I was like, okay, good talk. Luckily, one of my one of the founding directors of the church. Because when you found a church, this is for future reference, Porter, when you decide to start your own church.
Yeah.
When when you found a church, it's easier here than it was for Joseph Smith, who had 6 members. You just need 3 directors, and at least one of those has to be a resident of the state of Utah, and that's it. And if you've got those 3 directors can sign on, and then one person has to be the incorporator, who basically puts the paperwork together. That person could be a director, but usually is somebody else. So I had 3 directors, and then I was the incorporator. And one of my guys volunteers. It's a friend of mine. His name's Nate, and he volunteers with Second and Second. And he told me once. He said, "Joe, how close do you connect with the story of Korihor?" So I'm the author of the Korihor Argument: A Missionary's Journey Out of Mormonism. And he says, "Do you ever volunteer with the unsheltered?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Let's go, you and me." And it was Thanksgiving. And so the day after Thanksgiving, I went with Nate down to St. Mark's and cleaned the bathrooms. And afterwards, I looked at him and I said, "We can do this, Nate. We can get blankets." And he's like, "Absolutely." And I said, "But we won't gather enough blankets. These stingy Mormons aren't going to give up blankets," which I am very happy to say, Porter, I was wrong. I was so wrong about that. And I said, "We got to make blankets." And he's like, "Absolutely." And so he came on the show. He was one of my first guests. As a matter of fact, I think he's officially my first guest on Church for Atheists. And I said to him, "We'll make the best damn blankets in the world, man. We'll get, some quilters. We'll get like some ex-Mormons who know how to make blankets and have sewing machines and stuff. And we'll make the best blankets in the world, man." And he's like, "Don't do that." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because out there, if you have something that looks new and is obviously fancy, you paint a big target on their back. And that's when people start to fight." And for a while, I was a little bit concerned that Nate didn't know what he was talking about. Last night, I was in Salt Lake, and I gave out blankets. The police were out and abating the parks, so kicking people out of the parks. And I got into the middle, in between 2 guys who started screaming racial slurs at each other. And I was like, "Fellas, not right now, not here, not with me right here." And the police started mulling around like they were going to come over there. I'm like, "I'm not getting arrested for this, guys. I'm just trying to keep people from dying of the cold here." And so, but yeah, I mean, out there, you give somebody a blanket, if it's in the light near officials, near the church or something, you're generally going to be okay. But every once in a while, somebody sees that you got something they didn't get, it can turn violent in a hurry. Yeah. And so it's like, ugh. So anyways, so we've been manufacturing blankets that are, shall we say, economic. They work. I don't have my fabric in here right now, but we basically have this big bolt of fabric that doesn't fray. And so we can cut off a piece of it and make it in and fold it up, and it's just a piece of blanket. You don't even have to hem it or anything like that. So we take that, and then we take blankets that we gather from our neighbors, and we go out to the streets with them. So yeah, it's a long-winded answer. Sorry about that.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I've seen some of those communities in South Salt Lake, and I'm glad someone's. Well, I think there's a lot of people trying to help that, but I'm glad you're doing that.
You mean communities? You're talking about people camped out, or are you talking about?
Yeah, people camped out, homeless groups in South Salt Lake. I've run into.
Do you mind telling me where you see them? Because I've not
Days
been
of 47. Do you know the Days of 47? Like the Days of 47 rodeo house.
Okay, I've heard of it, but I'm sure I can find it.
Just west of there, there's a big community that I ran into in the park. Just west of there, there's like a huge community that was walking through the other day.
Cool.
So,
Yeah. Are they there consistently? Do you know, or
I think I've seen them there at least twice. Both of the times I went by there, they were there. So I don't know that they're always there, but both of the times I was in that area, they were there.
Good to know. Good to know.
I would go during the day or early evening.
Why do you say that?
We were there at like 2 p.m. with kids, and they were like hiding like cocaine from the kids as they were walking by. Really? And you're like, oh, that's good. They were like putting away like needles and stuff. They like yelled up the line. So like that, I think it's not uncommon, but that community in particular might have a lot of things that get rougher in the evening. I don't know.
Okay, good. I'll keep that in mind. It's interesting. I went to, is it Liberty? No, not Liberty Park. I went to the park over by the public library in Salt Lake, downtown Salt Lake, because an unsheltered man had directed me. He's like, that's where everybody is. So I went down there. I understand that the police have pretty much broken it up now. But I went down there and started handing out blankets in the day, and discovered it's a lot harder to get people to take blankets in the day than it is to get them to take it at night. So
actually, that's a good point. That's a good idea.
Yeah. I'm going to bring Nikki up into the stage. Nikki just joined us. She is my chosen family / flesh and blood sister. What's up, Nikki? You're muted, by the way. But yeah, Nikki's like basically one of my unordained de facto missionaries down in Washington County.
Oh, that's exciting. What's in Washington County? I don't even know.
That's St. George area.
Oh, that's right.
Nikki.
Sorry, I was not sure what we were doing.
Oh, we're doing a Linger Longer.
Yeah. Oh, good. And you do
it's
that
just
every
like
Wednesday or what?
So we do it whenever we're starting to do it every time that we have a service. So that Sunday and Sunday sermon or Wednesday service, we do a short service.
Cool. Well, that's good.
This is my friend Porter. Say hi, Porter.
Hey, Nikki, how's it going?
Good. Where are you at?
South Salt Lake.
Okay, so you're up in the cold too. It's cold here, but I saw your face last night on the video, Joe. It was cold, huh?
Oh my gosh, it was so cold.
What was the degrees?
I have no idea. It was so cold.
So cold.
I was out in it, and I was leaving my car running. It was a little scary, right? Because I'm like, man, somebody could just jump in this car. But I got too dang cold, man.
That's so much. Yeah. The other morning we left really early, my daughter and I, and it was 19 degrees down here. And I was like, I can't even believe it. And then last night she's all, Mom, let's go get a coffee at like 9:15 p.m. I'm like, that's probably a really bad idea. But we did. Dutch Bros was open. So that was
fun. Wow. Do you do the Dutch Brothers thing? I'd never been there.
Only because it's the only one open at 9:15 p.m.
Fair.
Nothing else here in St. George is open up that late. So
yeah, Beans and Brews closes before that.
Yeah, they close at 9, and same with Starbucks. A lot of them are at 9, so that was our only one. But you were asking what's in Washington County?
Yeah.
Not much. So
they have a lot of people there, Porter, that are called Mormons, but they're not called that. If you talk to them, they're not.
I hate those people.
Yeah, just say a long word. So our county's actually really wide, like a lot of territory, but obviously St. George is the biggest city. I live outside of the city limits there, but all still in the same area, and we're growing. I mean, we were like 90,000 people. I think we're like 120.
You cut out, Nikki. You lost internet. Nikki is gathering blankets down in St. George. I tried to convince her to go out and put them, go out and put them on shelter down there. But even though it gets cold there, she's more concerned about getting blankets to the folks up here where it gets super cold.
Yeah. Well, and we have, I hear that Salt Lake's like the major area for homeless people in Utah. Like I hear other counties will just ship them into Salt Lake. So
Oh, I don't know about that. That's very possible. I don't know about that though. What's up, Dustin? I don't know you, so but thanks for being here to our Linger Longer. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know about that. But one of the interesting things is we got Nikki back. One of the interesting things, the video you were commenting on, Porter, was my interview with Richard Carrier, and he lives in Georgia. And I was talking to him before we got started, and I'm like, oh, I've been having these problems. We were just catching up. We're not exactly close friends. I mean, we're getting to be friends, but we've known each other for years. And I was like, oh, I got this problem, this and this. And he's like, yeah, it's ice storms out here. I was like, oh, I'm
In
sorry.
Georgia. Wow.
And Georgia is so bad right now.
And they're not used to that, right? Like it's a new thing for them.
Well, it's
New
not
word.
this. It's worse than it has been. But he's like, yeah, no, in Georgia, they have like a short season where they get ice storms, and then but it's worse than it has been.
Yeah. Do you record these?
This is live.
So does that mean it records, or I don't know
Yes,
how it all works?
yes, that means it's also recorded. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wondering.
Your
Say
famous
hi to the future. That's it.
Right. I was just going to say, like, on the last Linger Longer, you were talking about like dogma and the concept of being a good person and living up to that. And like, I really would love to personally dig deeper into that. So if you have any recommendations.
Like, what is dogma? Like when we talked about what the
Yeah, and
difference is.
just how like you just correlate that through kind of your faith journey and separating that, because that's my biggest thing right now that I'm working on is like, am I a good person? Like, obviously, I know I'm a good person, but like, am I a good person? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? You know what I mean? Like, that's a very big thing for me. And I know a lot of people in my tight knit circle that kind of finds themselves transitioning in whichever direction,
Mm-hmm.
normally away
Yeah.
from the church we were raised in.
Right. Right.
Not the other way.
Right.
So it's very real. So I was thinking
Yeah.
about that. You'd probably have a good resource list, no?
Of about learning about
Dogma.
dogma, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, I
Both.
mean, as far as dogma itself, I mean, dogma I define, and I think is consistent with the definition, is any ideas that you're basically not allowed to question, that are taught religious ideas that are forbidden to question, or that at least you can't question, and maintain a consistency of faith in the organization. And I think that there's some people. I had this conversation with Aaron Ra on the Raw Men podcast. Aaron Ra is like one of the most famous atheists on the planet, and and he invited me on his show to talk about the blanket drive. And
Cool.
he had said basically that he's like, my understanding is that you can't call yourself a religion and not have dogma. And I was like, well, legally you can. The state of Utah, basically all you have to do is swear that you're not going to is put into your articles of incorporation that you're not going to sell shares to like mineral rights and water rights of real estate that you buy. That's like their main thing. And it's like, okay, guys. And then you basically swear, among other things, that you are going to, or you just swear, you put into your articles of incorporation that part of what you will do is to offset the burden on the state. So you're doing something with the money that you raise that tax deductible and tax free. You're using that to actually lighten the load or the burden on the state in some way. And as long as you say that and how you plan to do that, great. And then your spiritual community, okay, you're a church, great. And then that's it. The IRS, it's more specific. But again, I talk about this to abbreviate it. There are 4 C's the IRS is basically looking for a church. You have to have a canon, you have to have a creed, you have to have a clergy, and you have to have church, meaning you have to have services like we're having right now. And basically, if you're doing those 4 things, you're a church, and you call yourself a church, you are a church. And if you do it this way that I did it, I had to learn this. I had to put the research in. If you do it first through the state and then file your EIN number with the IRS, and you say, I am a church to the IRS, and it comes up and it says, do you understand that means that you have this? Yes, I understand, Uncle Sam. I get it. And it's like, okay, well, then you're a church. And then you are automatically a 501c3 according to the government, and you can receive tax deductible donations, and you don't have to pay taxes. But then you've sworn basically before the state and the federal government that you're going to do all of the things that churches do. Other than that, that's it. You're home free. So dogma and faith and God, none of that is part of the requirements for a church. And so now, as far as what you were saying about how do we become better people, I don't know if you caught any of my little enlightenment, my little mini sermon I did earlier tonight before this broadcast.
No.
Oh yeah.
I
So
need
this
to get
is
it on a calendar. Is it every Wednesday at 7 Mountain?
every Wednesday at 7.
And then what
I try
about
to go,
Sundays?
and then Sundays, with very few exceptions, always 10 a.m. Mountain Time.
Okay, I need to put on my calendar because I always catch up with these Linger Longers, and I've missed this stuff before.
I mean,
I
luckily
go back
it
and I
is
watch them again. I mean, I
right.
watch them, yeah, but after the thought.
Right, but it's a lot more fun live.
I think so.
Oh.
What was it about today?
Today we were talking about don't stay in the boat. So basically what I was talking about is that, when we're young, we have this idea of the just worlds hypothesis, or that everything should be fair. And then what happens as you grow older? You discover it's not fair.
A lot more. Yeah.
Every day. And as we become more responsible, for ourselves, and then as we become more responsible for other people, whether that's children, spouses, people we mentor, etc. And all of a sudden we discover that we want to make a just world for your children, for other people, because that's what love is. Right. So it's not a surprise. Basically, there are these different stages of belief, even people who have faith. And at stage 2, Fowler stage 2, you become more determined to believe in a justice, in that the true faith would be one that delivers on justice. And from that point on in your life, whatever stages you progress onto, it's not a surprise when people leave the church if they feel that the church is unjust. And I really was kind of responding actually to something I've been listening to Jacob Hansen. I don't think you know him, Nikki, or do you?
No, but I saw your interaction with him on your video.
Okay, cool. But he was talking about the reason why people leave the church is because their relationship is based on Joseph Smith's story instead of being based on Christ, and that you need to have a relationship first with Jesus, and then address your faith in Joseph Smith's story and the Book of Mormon and so forth after your faith in Christ. And he said, otherwise, people get upset saying, "Oh, the church it's not right that the church lied to us." Yeah. All right, hold on, Dustin. I'll answer you here in a second. Here, I don't want to get off track here, but what was I saying? No, that's why I try not to look at the comments.
That people leave about because of Joseph Smith and unjust.
Right. And I do. I think that in respect to Jacob, I think he's wrong. I do think, and I think a lot of people feel that way. That if you leave because you find out that Joseph Smith, wasn't as good a person as he's billed as, or that the church won't allow queer people and gay people to enjoy the same rights or the same sacraments as everybody else, or whatever it may be, then your relationship is with Joseph Smith and not with Christ. Your relationship is with the church. Your relationship is with yourself and your wokeness, quote unquote, or something like that, and not with Christ. And I'm looking, I'm like, no, it's because their belief is based on justice, and people, and we as adults, we want to create a more just world for our kids and for the people that we love, or a better world where things work out right. And so when we come to the idea that people get the feeling that the church is unjust, whatever the reason they may have for believing that, then they leave the church. And at least in the ex-Mormon community, that's what I see over and over again. And so I think that people out there, I think that we are all looking to create a better world, and especially religious people are looking to create a better world. But when they don't feel that any organization is helping them to build that better world, they'll leave and they'll find something else, or they'll have to convince themselves to stay, hoping that the church will get better. Which, I mean, a lot of people do. You know.
Yeah.
So I used to be very, Porter, I used to be very unfair in the way I used to say that. We used to call it the 4 stages of leaving your religion. First, you say blah, blah, blah. I don't do that anymore. That was back, I told you, Porter, I used to be very toxic. And I used to do a lot of making fun of people. We did have some fun at Jonah Barnes' expense in that video that you watched. And I felt like in the comments and interactions with him, he felt like it was good-natured. I hope I didn't offend him. That's where I am today. I'm like interacting with him. He does seem a little bit salty, but he does seem like he has thick skin. So, and he claims he loved it. He said, quote unquote, I'm thrilled. So
showed it to his kids, I think is what he said.
He said he did show it to his kids. I did say, Joan, I hope that your kids thought it was funny. And I sincerely mean that. I mean, I was having a good time. Richard was having a good time. And I always say, if you don't laugh at yourself, you're just not having fun. So hopefully Jonah can laugh at himself and his kids can laugh at him too. And laugh at me, because I'm weird. Do weird autistic-y things. So I really do hope that they had a good time. But and then I have invited Jonah, he can come on the show. Do you know about Jonah Barnes, Nikki?
I don't.
Yeah. Suffice it to say, he's on Ward Radio.
Okay.
Oftentimes.
Yeah.
Okay, you know them.
Yeah.
And he's written that Key to the Keystone book.
I haven't read that one. Mm-mm.
Have you read Key to the Keystone, Porter?
No, it's on my bookshelf somewhere, but I have a lot of books on my bookshelf somewhere. So
Sure. I haven't read it. I told him point blank I haven't read it. But basically he claims, and he says I'm getting this wrong. So don't take my word for it because I'm obviously wrong. But he's basically made the claim that these early Christian writings, that's like one of my things, was like I love these old Christian writings that are extra canonical or apocryphal. They basically validate the claims around the historicity of the Book of Mormon and the teachings of the Book of Mormon, especially things like Isaiah's prophecies about basically a gospel, a human gospel. Jesus was a man who would be a man who would live on the earth and would be crucified for the sins of the world and be resurrected. And then he claims this other document, the Ascension of Isaiah. Again, he claims he doesn't claim this. The Ascension of Isaiah is based on the same story. And so it's proof that, or let me rephrase this. I'm trying to be as fair as possible about this. He claims that it is basically, if it's not the same document that Lehi brought to the Americas in the brass plates, then it's at least based on the same tradition, same story, same oral tradition, same story. And I brought on Richard Carrier, who's one of the foremost Jesus historians out there and the Jesus mythicist, definitely the foremost Jesus mythicist in the world, to basically have some fun at his expense. And we just watched him talking on Ward Radio and had ourselves a little laugh. But I told him, and Porter, you can bet, I mean, I don't know how much of this you actually watched the video, but maybe you can validate this for me. Where I said, here's the thing. I said to Richard Carrier, he's not entirely wrong, and he is getting into interesting things that you and I talk about. I said that people like you and I talk about, because Richard Carrier wrote the book on the historicity of Jesus, which he basically in which he claims there is, at the top end of the margin of error, a 1 in 3 chance that Jesus didn't start with a man, he started with a myth. And then later was euhemerized, meaning that somebody took the story of a god or an angelic being that lived and died and was resurrected, or was abased and then raised again in the heavens, and took that and then said, there's got to be an earth version of the story of this being, and basically wrote the story afterwards. And that is what we now know as the Gospels. And he says point blank, we do not know this. There's no smoking gun that says that this is true, that it happened this way. But based on this evidence, the Christian history community, the New Testament history community, which is mostly made up of Christians, basically they aren't willing to admit that it is extremely plausible that that's how it happened. I lost you there, Nikki, but I think maybe you're just dealing with stuff with the family. Anyway, but I thought it was very fair. So, but what's interesting to me about it, Porter, is that here we are having this conversation, those of us who are Jesus mythicists like me and Richard, and we're looking at the same records that Jonah's looking into and saying, this is more proof, or at least more reason to believe that Jesus was never a man, that he never lived. Now, we don't know that, but it's more reason to believe it. And he's looking at it as further validation that there is a story about Jesus that predates Christianity, and that is, at least in some way, coincides with, Jonah, when you see this video, that at least coincides with the story, the version of the gospel of Jesus, the pre-Jesus gospel, found in the Book of Mormon as related by Isaiah. Jonah, call me out. What am I saying wrong? Come on the show, Jonah. I'll be nice. Porter can tell
Is
you.
it on Audibles?
Which one?
His book.
Porter's? No, Porter didn't write a book. Or maybe Porter
Jonah's.
did, and I don't know. Jonah's book is not Audible.
Man.
I think he said he's been working on one, but okay. I don't think. But interestingly enough, Richard, my friend Richard, he has a reader book that gives kind of like the layman's version of his research, and he has just finished the audiobook, and it's coming out in the next month. That book is called Jesus from Outer Space. And cool. I can't wait to listen to it. I told him, I'm like, I haven't read that one. I read On the Historicity of Jesus, and I was like toothpicks like this the whole time. It was because it was a peer-reviewed academic literature book, and frankly, it was like it was a little hard to get through, but it was super interesting.
Cool. Well, good to know.
I'm just getting caught up with Dustin's comments here. How do we approach on the 501c3 EIN number hasn't been registered? So Dustin, I think I'm just getting a quick look at your comments here. Yes, the Church of Korihor is registered with an EIN number through the IRS. Now, there is a process of getting a separate 501c3 so that you can ensure that you can start congregations in other states. This is the way I understand it anyways, and start congregations in other states without being challenged there on the basis of your churchness in the state of Utah. But that takes a while to get approved. So we're getting our ducks in a row for that paperwork. But from the time that you are registered as a church with a state, really, it's even without getting registered. If you hang a shingle outside your house, technically, it says the Church of Joe's Front Porch. Technically, any donations to the Church of Joe's Front Porch is tax deductible automatically. But it becomes a question of how do you prove it? And number one. Number two, unless you're going to take all your donations in like gold or something, where are you going to keep it? How are people going to give it to you? How are you going to keep it? Because if you're going to have a checking account somewhere, you have to have an EIN number. So, but technically, according to the tax code, if you claim you are a church and you fit all the description of a church, then you're a church and you don't even have to register at all. But it's a question of prove it, right? At that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing creating a church. Let me tell you, one of the most interesting journeys I've probably ever been on. But yeah.
I know I saw you late last year and you kind of were talking about what you would have to do at that point to go forward with it. But it was, I don't know, it was pretty much a concept still at that point. Like you were starting that process, I think, the research.
Yeah. I'd been looking into it for about a year, and but I had some bad information, so I was glad that I found a guy who seeds Christian churches, plants Christian churches, and followed his instructions on how to do it right. And so that guy has a YouTube channel. I don't think to this day that he knows he helped to found one of the first true atheist churches in the world. So, my friends, I'm getting the text messages from the wife saying that she got out of her meeting 15 minutes ago. Where am I? So, I got to go pick up Molly. But I want to thank everybody for coming on to Linger Longer. Porter, I am glad that I didn't hurt your feelings, and I hope that you will consider coming back on to future episodes and where we can have some good conversations.
Sounds good to me. Sounds fun.
Nice to meet you, Porter.
Good to meet you, Nikki.
All right, Nikki, I'll talk to you later. We got to make arrangements to get those blankets.
Yep, let's get it. Okay. Have a good night.
You
Bye.
too.
Guys.